This episode is brought to you by Prodzik Properties. If you're looking for a unique luxury new construction home, check out Prodzik Properties' lineup of new homes coming in 2024. Looking to build a custom home? Prodzik Properties is here to bring your vision to life. Visit ProdzikProperties.com to learn more.
Welcome back to this episode of That Westfield podcast. Today we're joined by Lindsay Heller of Fox Rothschild. What's up, Lindsay?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited for this one. You're our first lawyer on the show.
Well, I'm very excited too.
This is going to be good. We're going to dive into some real shit on this episode, I think. One of our episodes.
I do day in and day out. Let's go. Hit me with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the businesses here are, really great businesses. There's places you go to kind of escape your problems, but we can't escape our problems all the time. Sometimes we have to deal with real life stuff, and you are probably someone who sees not so great stuff all the time, but also get people to the finish line to actually get their life and everything back in order and back to a safe place.
I always tell my clients that it's a very long tunnel. If you're lucky, it's a little bit shorter, but there's always a light at the end of it. And that's one takeaway from my job that is a little feel good, I have to say, is knowing that you're getting someone out of a situation they don't want to be in, right. Whether it's terrible or it's just something they don't want to be a part of anymore. You're really taking them to the end and helping them start anew in their life, which is major, right? Like if you're going through a divorce or you're going through custody litigation not unrelated to a divorce or a domestic violence litigation, anything under the family law umbrella, it's the biggest moment in your life, and you're dealing with the most important things in your life, primarily your children.
Right.
And your money and your assets.
Right.
And both of those things are really important in terms of how somebody wants to live their life going forward in the new life that they are going to have. So we help them get there.
Yeah, and because no one ever anticipates being in that situation, right? And I think obviously now prenups are probably more, accepted than they used to be. You'd
be surprised. So I practice in both New Jersey and New York, although primarily in New Jersey. I definitely do a lot more prenuptial agreements in New York, probably because of the wealth distribution.
Mm-hmm.
We do, of course, do prenuptial agreements in New Jersey, but not many people have them when they come to us. Mm-hmm. And it may depend on the circumstances. Clients always say to me, do you have a prenup? And I say, no. I got married when I was 26 years old. I had just graduated from law school. What would you have liked me to put in it? My debt? My husband wasn't going to sign that. And I don't want to keep my debt. So I'm happy to try to split that in the future if push comes to shove. Just kidding, Jason. No, we're not getting a divorce ever. But
hope he has a better lawyer than you.
Yeah, well, that's impossible. So, it just depends on the circumstances, and the enforceability of prenuptial agreements is also different in New Jersey and New York. In New Jersey, it can be considered easier to have your prenuptial agreement invalidated. In New York, things may be more strictly enforced, but lo and behold, when we have clients who do get divorced and later in an email tell us, hey, guess what? I'm getting remarried, or I love this person. We always say, please let us know if you'd like a prenuptial agreement.
Right.
Because they certainly are a helpful tool, more commonly though in second marriages where somebody has, or a later in life marriage where somebody has developed their career and built their assets on their portfolio on their own, or have children that they want to protect their inheritance, would be another reason. Most commonly when a prenuptial agreement is done in a first marriage, one of the parties or both have business interests, have a family who has a business, or have an inheritance coming their way.
Right. And I'm sure that's a very hard decision for people to make because no one wants to feel like that's a necessary thing, but I think the reality is like, let's just, while we're in a good place, right, everybody make a decision that's best for everybody then when you still love each other very much.
Most commonly, the prenuptial agreement negotiations go much more smoothly than the divorce negotiations.
I'm sure.
But I will say, in the recent past, I did have a prenuptial agreement where we had to sit in a conference room with both parties and both attorneys, going through terms that were really difficult for each party to hear. And the most awkward part was when the day ended, my client said to me, well, me and my fiance are going to the Knicks game tonight. And I thought, at least when you leave a bad divorce negotiation, they're not speaking to each other after.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so heavy. So like all day, every day, you're kind of, responsible for making sure that the best outcome happens for people that are in the worst situation, one of the worst situations that they'll probably ever be in. So like real talk, like what does that personally do like for you as a person, like as a mother, as a wife, like is that something that's kind of heavy for you to work with? Like how do you deal with that being, so professional, but also like still a human being?
Yeah. So I will say one of the reasons I went into family law is because even throughout law school, I always wanted to work with people, and I have what I consider to be an empathetic personality, and I want to help people. It's what I want to do. I thought I would go into nonprofit work. I had a lot of student loans. That was not the situation that was going to work for me. But I am a mom of 2 kids. I live in Westfield. I have a baby and a 3-year-old. Mm-hmm. So my outlook on the practice did change after having children and just being able to appreciate more what a client may say about parenting issues that in a vacuum may not seem like a big deal, quote unquote, but when you think about it differently can seem really much more important. And it's hard. Like I am an empathetic person. I carry my heart on my sleeve. I take it home with me and I think about it a lot. I had a situation when my husband had COVID a couple summers ago, who remembers at this point.
Right.
And I made him quarantine away from us. This was like, when things were really crazy. Right. And he was in the basement, and I kept FaceTiming him with my daughter to see him. And at the time, I don't even know if she was a year old, probably not, but it was still like important that they see each other. Mm-hmm. And we have mandatory FaceTime calls between divorced parents in our divorce agreements.
Wow.
And the amount of post-judgment, which means post-divorce, issues that arise between facilitating these FaceTime calls is more than you could ever imagine. So when I was doing it and my husband's in the basement and my daughter could barely speak, and obviously she would only stay on for 2 seconds, but I was still making it happen.
That's sweet.
I really did think to myself about my clients who are facilitating these calls with a former spouse that they really don't have a relationship with, and these children that can't focus on being on the phone, and then the blame shifting that happens about why the children aren't focusing.
Right.
So that was one experience that I always think about when I'm dealing with this in my cases. It's just, it seems like things would be really simple, but it's important to remember that the underlying relationship between parties always impacts things in the future, and you want to say that it doesn't, and the best of co-parents really are able to put it to the side to the best of their ability. But everyone has a preconceived notion of the world. Everyone has a preconceived notion of the relationship. Everyone who's been married, who remains happily married or not, has things about their partner that really annoy them. So
not me.
When you're having to deal with sure, not me. Okay. When you're having to deal with those nuances in a relationship that has dissolved, it's definitely difficult. And it's something that I think about with my own kids too.
So you are also a practical psychologist, apparently, right? But that's what happens when you're working with people all day, every day. Yes. Like you learn to just pick up things and see patterns, and it makes you better at your job, because then you're kind of like, oh, I've seen this before. Like maybe here's how I can handle it. But at the end of the day, it's like you just do it the best that you can and get the law on your side. And
therapy is definitely a hat that I wear as a family law attorney, though unlicensed. But you can't avoid it, right? They go hand in hand. I do always tell my clients that they should be in individual therapy. I think children should be in therapy. I'm a huge proponent of it. Just to have an outlet to talk to where you can be yourself, hopefully, and have your needs addressed. Because while I do act as a therapist in my job, I am not actually a therapist.
Right.
So yeah, that comes up every day. The therapy role comes up every day.
What do you think one of the biggest misconceptions is in your field for people who are kind of thinking about divorce or getting into it or starting to call lawyers?
I would say the biggest misconception is that lawyers want you to have a really bad divorce to make money. That is not how it works. We, at least me, want to see the most positive outcome. Potential clients will call me and say, I don't want to go to court. How do I not go to court? Or does mediation, does that mean that we go before the judge? And, just the confusion around the difference between litigation and what we call alternative dispute resolution, which would include mediation and arbitration, which are 2 different things, and helping a potential client understand those different roads that you can take and how they can also intersect. Like if something urgent is happening at the outset of a case that requires you to start with the court process versus starting with the mediation process, so that somebody can enter an order requiring your partner to do something or not do something.
Right.
you can still mediate later. It doesn't mean that if you start in one place, you can't do the other. And likewise, if you go to a mediation, it's not binding until there's a signed writing. And if you go to a mediation and you're unhappy with how that process is going, you can then seek relief from the court.
Right.
So that is a huge misconception just in terms of what it means to get divorced and the road to take to get there. And also the timing of getting divorced, and that it has to be a nasty process. It doesn't. But one thing that I always tell my potential clients in every area, whether it's divorce, domestic violence, non-dissolution, which is parties who were never married but have children or property in common, or perhaps are married but aren't seeking a divorce, though they are seeking to address custody and parenting time issues. One of the things, or prenups, one of the things I always tell my clients is we can only control our side. So we may want to do this in the nicest way possible, the smoothest way possible, and the least costly way possible. But if the other side is not acting in the same manner, we have to respond as is appropriate.
Right. She knows what she's talking about, guys.
Thank you.
I followed along, but I'm like, there's so much information in your brain.
Sorry, I tend to talk a lot and say a lot.
But that's good because you obviously, like, you could just tell that you've been around the block, like, you know exactly, you've seen all the situations, and not that I am getting divorced, but I would feel very comfortable hiring you just based off of this conversation. So that's really good.
I've only ever practiced family law, exclusively. So, and I also loved it in law school, but as we know, school can only teach you so much. It's really like out on the streets.
Speaking of, go Pirates.
Yeah, go Pirates.
How was that experience?
It was good. You know, I will say I'm a much bigger Scarlet Knights fan. I'm Rutgers undergrad, and my husband and I love Rutgers still. We both went there. We were in brother-sister fraternity sorority.
Very cute.
And sort of. But did the whole thing. We go back all the time. We had season tickets for all the sporting games until we had kids, and our lives changed dramatically. And we still try to go back when we can. And then I went to Seton Hall for law school. There are law schools in Newark. Like we were saying, you're from Newark.
Yeah.
So we have that in common. And Seton Hall was great. It was a great opportunity. We lived in Jersey City because it was an easier commute to Seton Hall. And it was awesome. It was a good time.
Yeah. How'd you guys end up in Westfield again? Because you both of you are not from here.
We are not. So we are from Bergen County, which is a bubble, an amazing bubble that we love, but we did not know that this area of the state existed, and we thought Rutgers was South Jersey. So that's our background. But we both have huge families. I have 3 sisters and a brother. My husband has a twin brother and has an older and younger sister. So over the course of our lives, my oldest sister ended up living in Scotch Plains, had her kids there. Jason's sister ended up in Westfield, had her kids there. And we were in Jersey City. I clerked for a Union County judge out of law school doing matrimonial. And when it came time for us to leave Jersey City during COVID, like everybody else, my sister-in-law said, hey, there's a house around the corner for me that's for sale. Do you want it? And I was like, I guess.
Sure.
And here we are.
Back when you could just get a house that easily.
Right.
And not have to sell a kidney.
Well, we sold a couple kidneys. It was 2021, but we got it. I wrote a really good, very sad letter about what it means to live around the corner from family, which remains true, and 10 minutes away from my own sister.
Nice.
Tonight, my daughter, my sister, and my niece and I will be having dinner at the cafe of the JCC.
Cool.
So that's like really special that we get to have this relationship and that my kids can be with their cousins all the time.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think, you know what? There is a lot to be said for writing those letters. I write those letters when we're applying for apartments or houses or whatever, and they work. We've never been told no when we've written
They do work. Although certain towns don't allow them, so be careful.
Really?
Yeah, Montclair, where we were looking, because they could result in like a bias if the sellers are able to, like, I guess, figure out your background by virtue of the letter. It could result in a bias. That is not allowed.
I did not know that.
Yes.
I'll probably still do it anyway. Okay. No, Montclair's too far. Actually, growing up in Newark, like Montclair was like the closest little hub for doing stuff. So it was always fun and always such good restaurants. But okay. So what do you think is really important for someone to know who is potentially looking for someone like you? Like, is there kind of like a good criteria, whether somebody worked with you or not? It's like, what are the questions people should be asking when they're looking to hire?
Sure. So I think that it's really important to have a formal consult, a 1-hour conversation with your potential lawyer or many, as you're shopping for lawyers, because I find that clients find the lawyer that is like them, or the lawyer that they can lean on in ways other than explaining the law. So the therapist hat, for example. And you'd be surprised when you're going through a case over the course of time, seeing how much the lawyer and the client emulate each other, almost like when people say your pets, you like start to look like your pets. It's true. So it's important that you mesh with their personality, because you're going to be dealing with these people day in and day out on the most important things of your lives, as we discussed earlier. So it's really important to vet your lawyer and just have confidence in them. You want to go to somebody who's been practicing family law for a long time, and it's not a knock on anyone, but I think it's helpful in cases that I've had where the attorney on the other side practices mostly, if not exclusively, family law versus a general practitioner. There's a lot of nuances. The family court is a horse of a different color, and you want someone who's been in and out of it a lot.
Right.
And for me, I think it's important for clients, if they want to go this route, to have someone who's also really comfortable in a mediation session. Is that person a trained mediator? We have a family law mediation training certification. I am. So you know that person has a lot of mediation experience, and just to know that you're going to someone who you value. I also happen to work for a large firm, Fox Rothschild, so we have resources that maybe not other firms have as much. We can get things out the door before you say get it out the door, and they look very pretty and nice binding, and things of that nature too. So you also want to be conscious of cost. I always tell potential clients, when I'm having a consult, if they are telling me about something that I can tell from the beginning is going to be a really long litigation, and I tell them my retainer payment, and I say, if you were quoted less than this, the person was trying to get you in the door. It's not because that's what the cost is going to be.
Gotcha.
So you want to go to someone who's honest about price, who says, like, listen, you're not going to like this answer. This is going to suck to hear, but the reality is this could cost X, or you're going to need a custody expert. So on top of me, the custody expert costs Y. So you want to go to someone who's honest. You don't want to go to a salesperson who's quoting you a $2,500 retainer to get you in the door, because that retainer will go and then you will just receive the bills.
Just getting bills over and over again.
So honesty, personality, and experience.
Right. What is a custody expert?
What is a custody expert? Yeah, custody expert is when there is custody and parenting time litigation. The parties basically can't agree on what the parenting time schedule would be, if and who the primary parent should be, who should be in charge of making certain decisions for the child, anything like that. Then you should get a custody expert, which is a mental health professional.
Okay.
You want to use someone who does this stuff all the time in family law litigation. We have our people that we go to, but a mental health professional who does an evaluation and comes to a recommendation on what the custody and parenting time arrangement should be. That evaluation includes interviews of the parties, interviews of the children, depending on their age, but generally of the children. If they're too young, then at least observing the parents with the children. Interviews of any collateral sources, such as teachers, therapists, anybody that the evaluator may feel necessary. Sometimes that's no one else. If there's a nanny who lives inside the home, that person's going to be important. If grandparents take on primary roles, those people are going to be important. And within the evaluation, there's almost there is a psychological evaluation of the parties, and then they spit out what their recommendation is.
What makes people unable to resolve these things on their own and have to call in all these experts? I mean, in order to just have a basic schedule and some other things set up.
If the answer was that simple, we could find a solution for it. But it's generally people, and it's not a good or bad thing. But when people really disagree, this is what you need to do to get it done, because when you present your position to the court, you need to have your evidence as to why it should be that way. And we are not experts in the field. So my client can't give testimony at a trial as to why psychologically she is more fit to be a better parent. You need expert testimony about that. And you may have, I was saying I had this trial that lasted for a really long time, and the other party lived in a state on the other side of the country, and that person wanted 50-50, which means equal parenting time with this child. That is impossible.
Right.
The kid was not even 5 years old, going to fly back and forth. It was impossible, but we couldn't get through to him. His attorney obviously couldn't get through to him. Mediators couldn't get through to him. So there had to be custody evaluations on both sides and a full-fledged trial.
What did you think was going to happen?
Well,
what did he think was going to happen?
Not what did happen, which was that he didn't win. But sometimes it's someone like that, where the position is that ridiculous. And sometimes it's more simple where you're a couple overnights apart, but you can't get there.
Right. Whew, man, this is crazy.
It's crazy. But I will say, and I say this to my friends all the time who ask me for divorce trends now that we're all, married for 10 years or less and talk about this stuff.
Right.
I say, listen, I only see people looking to get divorced, sometimes in good situations and sometimes in not so good situations and everything in between. There are plenty of happy marriages out there. Right. They just don't come see me because they don't have a reason to.
Hey, we're here to tell you that we're not getting divorced.
And there are many simple, simple is a loaded word, but there are many less complicated divorces that get done without custody experts and things like that. But these are the mechanisms that we have in place to proceed when necessary.
Wow. So with all your experience, have you ever won any awards or have any accolades throughout the years?
Yes. So there are some peer-reviewed awards that are given out, and I've been named to Best Lawyers in America, first under Ones to Watch for 2 years, and now for 2 years, which means up and coming. Now for 2 years, I've just been on Best Lawyers in America under Family Law.
Very cool.
The first year I was one of 3 people in my department, 2 of them being my superior partners, and last year one of 4 people in my department, one of my best friend partners, and again my superior partners. Superior partners is a weird thing to say, but the ones who run the group, which what can you say? And then also Super Lawyers Rising Stars. I've been on for the better part of a decade every year.
Yeah. How's that feel?
Honestly, it feels really good. Every time I get the email saying that I've been reselected, I get a sigh of relief because there's always the nerve that you won't be reelected, and they are peer reviewed.
Right.
I vote and other lawyers in the community vote, and there is a statistic out there that I don't have with me of the small percentage of lawyers who make the list. So it feels nice. Cool. It feels rewarding. It doesn't feel as rewarding as the most rewarding thing in my job is when I get through a case and I don't hear from the client for a while after, meaning there's no post-divorce litigation that comes up. And all of a sudden I get an email that's, hey, thinking of you, this great thing is happening in my life.
Oh, nice.
That happened to me over the holidays, a divorce that I finished pre-COVID. So I think it was actually earlier 2020 that they were divorced. And I got an email from the client with a picture of her with her children telling me how great everyone's doing. And,
that's so nice.
I know all about her kids. I've never met them and I shouldn't. But they were young and now they're in college. And these are all the great things that are happening. And it makes me feel really good that I helped them get to this stage of life.
Right. Because it is such a tumultuous thing, and then just to have everyone be on the other side of it and kind of back to their new normal, and just get to you should take
it also feels good when there is some post-judgment litigation and they come back to you for it. Not that I want them to experience the post-judgment litigation, but that they're happy with the work that you did and know that you can help them again.
Yeah, because it's, I guess for some people, unfortunately, it's just something that they'll always have to deal with, maybe longer than they would want to. Maybe it's just, you said, up to 5 years sometimes.
Often related to the age of the children. So if you're getting divorced and your child is 2, you're co-parenting with this person until they're 18, and then child support until they're out of college. So that may be a really smooth couple decades or however many years that is.
Right.
But it may not be.
Is the divorce rate still 50% about there?
So I'd like to say I'm a good statistician. I don't know if that's the correct word.
You can just lie to us, it's fine.
But I would say it's high. It's high. Friends will say to me, in this group of people, who do you think is going to be the one that gets divorced? Because statistically, it's going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
But it's.
Have you dealt with any same-sex divorces?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
I hear that. I hear that's much higher, much higher percentage.
Well, it was funny when same-sex marriage became legal. I forget who did it, but somebody immediately bought the same-sex divorce. That's URL.
Right, the URL, yeah.
Same-sex divorces, same-sex prenuptial agreements. It is as it should be.
Right.
The same work.
Exactly. Matter.
There is absolutely no difference. And actually, we have a lot of cases where it was a man and a woman who are getting divorced, and one of them actually is in a relationship, in a same-sex relationship, which happens all the time too. So
is it mostly the woman going to be with women?
It's been both.
Interesting.
It's been both, and there's definitely been some mostly men in situations where they're trying to hide it, but it's definitely been both.
Listen, I've seen it all. I very much believe that.
Yeah, and look, divorce, I always say divorce does not discriminate against gender, sexual preference, financial circumstances, age. Divorce is divorce. I've done divorces with infants, parties who have infants, parties who have adult children. I did a divorce where they had just celebrated their 50-year wedding anniversary with all of their grandchildren and got divorced the year after. So it really doesn't discriminate, is my point.
Wow. That's wild.
It's just
50 years.
Well, when you think about it, people live for a long time right now. So if you got married at 20 and at year 50, you're 70 and you're really not happy, you can do a lot after 70. Like, you can live a whole other life. So
I love that being like, you know what, I'm done.
Yeah,
like, pack your shit.
Yeah. Exactly. Like
what?
they're just
those are my bocce balls.
Yeah,
Totally
right. Maybe there just comes a point. And for some of us, there doesn't.
Yeah.
Only time will tell.
It's I've as we get older, right? I think we see all sorts of different people. Like I have friends' parents that are just like, to me, like the ideal of like marriage and family. And like, how have they? And I see them like, how have you done it? How have you been married for 40 something years and you guys still like each other? And then there's like my parents are good people, but they're always crazy. They've always fought. They're still together, but they fight like cats and dogs. And then like when you're the one who's married, you're like, oh my goodness, like how do I not do the things that they did wrong, and how do I always be better and better and better? So like right now there's all this information. Everyone's on TikTok and Instagram. Yeah. Like, is there a piece of advice you would give people who are in good marriages that you think would help them stay in good marriages from what you've seen?
I would say really focus on your marriage. Like, there's nothing wrong with couples therapy. It's not embarrassing. People, let your marriage thrive and understand that you're each people with your own personalities and your own ways of doing things. And especially where I am and my friends are, my peers, like we, a lot of us have young kids. It's a very stressful, life is stressful, but it's a stressful time in the sense of like splitting the jobs that we're each doing with our kids versus jobs outside or not outside the house. And some resentment can build up. Like really focus on it and have good communication. But I'd also say that I don't know if clients say it because it makes them feel better to say it or because it's true. A lot of times I have clients say to me, I knew I should have never married this person. Wow. Or someone in my family or a close friend told me to not marry them, or I ignored all these signs. So really just have a lot of self-worth, know what you deserve, and cater to your marriage and your partner.
Right. And never stop dating, I think is always a good one too,
never
right?
stop dating. Exactly. Like all in that same umbrella. Like it's hard. Life gets hard. Work gets hard. Kids get hard. Not having kids get hard. Like the whole thing. And I've been through all of it. And still having a space for your relationship is really important. Like I went through this crazy fertility journey, and now I'm saying too much, but this is my personality. So now clients know if you want someone who says too much, I'm yours.
No, but being somebody who went through that, I mean, that's heavy for potential divorce too. I mean,
it was insane. And it was over a 4-year period. I mean, we had our daughter in that period, but it all compounded on each other, and it was long. And there was a time, summer 2022, where my fertility doctor said you need to take a break. So it just happened to be the summer, and she wanted me to go gluten-free, dairy-free, and take 8 weeks to do that, which happened to be the summer. It was the best thing she could have done for me, and she didn't realize what she was doing because my husband and I took those 8 weeks, and we had our daughter at the time who we love so much, and we didn't abandon you, Teddy, but we took trips. He had a work person, got married in Canada, and we went to Canada for the weekend. Nice. I had this embarrassing to say, like, sleepaway camp, alumni reunion that we went to for the weekend, and all these little things, and we went to a concert at Stone Pony in Asbury. We had fun, and I was like, oh yeah, this is great. And obviously on the fertility journey there was a lot of sadness, but to give ourselves that time was really important. So I'm definitely not a marriage expert. I call myself a divorce expert. But in my experience, I think, like you said, keep dating.
No, you're really cool, and I think you have a lot of experience, and you're just a great person. So I'm very excited for all the things that you do in the future. Before we go, tell everyone a couple of your favorite places in Westfield that you like to frequent.
Okay, I'm obsessed with Kirschenbaum's right now. I think that they're incredible. I'm so happy that they're here.
They get the most shout outs on the show, I have to say.
They do? Yeah, Kirschenbaum's is awesome. I'm planning a women's networking event with a couple of other women, and we're...
Shout them out. Say hello.
We're going to use Kirschenbaum's for that. On one of my about to return to work from maternity leave day depression, I did a whole mess at South Moon Under, which was really fun, and then acted like a teenager and walked across to Ruby and Jenna and did something that like I shouldn't have done, and I'm glad no clients saw me.
Or something?
Well, I did do that when my daughter was born, my cartilage. But I did some shopping there. That was fun. And I just love being in town. Like we came from Jersey City, like everybody else came from Hoboken, Jersey City around when we did. And it's nice. You don't feel trapped. You can walk to town. You can get around.
Totally.
You can do your stuff. But
Nice. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, tell
and
everyone-
some ramen. I'm really into the new some
I haven't
ramen.
been there yet.
Okay, it's really good. You should go.
All right. So tell everyone where they can find you, your website, email, all that good stuff.
Sure. So I'm an attorney at Fox Rothschild, which is Roth, Roths Child. So you could find me on the website, foxrothschild.com. I have blog entries on the website as well, which you can find on my profile or the New Jersey Family Law blog, which is our blog. My Instagram, although I have to admit it's up and coming, it's nothing to write home about, is LindsayAHellerEsq. And I will give you my office line just for shits and giggles. It's 973-548-3318. Not my cell phone, only for the best clients. And my email, lheller@foxrothschild.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lindsay. This was a blast. I learned a lot, and I really think that you're going to be able to help a lot of people in their time of need.
Thank you so much.
So.
Thank you. It was really nice for you to have me, and I look forward to meeting a lot of Westfield residents and those in the area, regardless of the circumstance.
Cool. All right, guys. Have a good one. Bye.